Hi, Stefano Molea here, San Diego criminal defense lawyer and partner at the law office of David P. Shapiro, where we help good people regain control of their future when charged with a crime. Anytime I come across an assault, a battery, a domestic violence, or even a homicide case, self-defense is something that is always considered as a claim that can potentially absolve my client of criminal liability. So let's break down the basics of a self-defense case. A defendant should not be found guilty of a crime if there is a lawful self-defense or defense of another. Here is what has to be present. 1, the defendant reasonably believed that she or someone else was in imminent danger of suffering bodily injury or being touched unlawfully. The defendant reasonably believed that the immediate use of force was necessary to defend against the danger. And 3, the defendant used no more force than was reasonably necessary to defend against the danger. So there are 2 important words that you will see and hear over and over again. The first is reasonable. Defining what's reasonable depends on the circumstances and what the defendant knew at the time she acted. For example, if the defendant knew that the other person had harmed others in the past, that's a factor that can be considered to decide whether the defendant's actions, reaction speed, for example, force, were reasonable. What's interesting about this factor is that whether or not the person actually had harmed others doesn't have to be true. It's just that the defendant has to reasonably believe the person had used violence in the past or harmed others at the time of the fight. The other important word is immediate. The defendant can't use force in anticipation of future harm. It has to be immediate harm. Another important note here is that the defendant doesn't have to get hit before reacting for a full self-defense claim. But the defendant does have to stop using force when the threat has stopped. Look, would I rather have a case where my client was hit a few times before using the force or fighting the threat? It can make the self-defense claim a little bit easier, but it's not necessary. The other important component here is that the defendant can stand her ground and does not have to retreat in the face of harm. But guess what? The law says that a defendant doesn't get to claim self-defense if he provokes a fight or a quarrel with the intent to create an excuse to use force. This is the part that you'll see people on the internet not understand. They think they know the law and they make problems as an excuse to try and defend themselves. Not smart. So, hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, give me a call. Stefano Molea, San Diego criminal lawyer, 619-295-3555.